In Sri Lanka, one person was killed and several buildings damaged as anti-Muslim riots continued on from last night. The northwestern province of the country is currently under an indefinite curfew. A 45-year-old man died after an angry mob attacked him at his carpentry workshop. Now, this is the first death in a violent backlash following last month's terror attacks. Elsewhere in the province, dozens of people torched Muslim-owned shops, vandalized homes and mosques. The Sri Lankan government says it will take stern action against those who disrupt peace and violate the curfew it imposed. Now, security forces have been ordered to use maximum force to contain any violence. The latest wave of unrest started on Sunday, with riots breaking out in several areas. And as violence continued to spread, the government imposed a nationwide curfew last night and temporarily blocked social media and messaging platforms. And tensions have been running high in Sri Lanka since suicide bombers killed more than 250 people at churches and hotels more than 3 weeks ago. And for more on this, we're joined in studio by Dr. Chulanee Attanayake.
Thank you for joining us. Firstly, what's driving this? What's causing all this violence, particularly in the northwestern parts of Sri Lanka?
Well, as we see after the Easter attack 3 weeks ago, people reacted calmly and responsibly. They were supportive of the government measures and the security measures that has been taken. But since yesterday and the day before, we see a new wave of attacks by the mobs on a Muslim community. This could be due to perhaps several reasons. First is the fear and continuously growing fear, especially after government forces found so much amount of weapons from Muslim houses, safe houses, lands, and even from inside mosques. So as a result of that, people's mistrust has grown about the other community. They do not know whom to trust and whom not to trust. They do not know who are the extremists and who are not the extremists. Secondly, it is also perhaps because the people have lost the trust on the government. They are not confident that the government is making enough measures to curb violence and to protect them. So, for instance, one of the incidents that triggered in Chilao was after the people complained about a suspect and about a person who posted a racial violence related post in Facebook, and the police did not act immediately. So that caused people to take law into their hands. So I think the mob violence that we see are a result of this situation.
But then the mob violence, and it's a result of that. But we are seeing that this is actually somewhat of a development. How dangerous is this development? And how do you think that's going to actually play out in the government trying to, perhaps bring some sort of stability to, Sri Lanka?
Well, it is definitely dangerous. For one, because when these things happen, government has to mobilize the forces into the areas where the mob violence is happening, which means the security that could be used to protect some other areas will be dispersed into these areas. As a result, the focus gets diverted, which will give room for the terrorists to reorganize or regroup or whatever they want to do in the future. So, therefore, I think one aspect that the government should do is be more proactive and be more understanding about the community's feelings, because for one, they have lost the trust of the government, so it is important that they regain that trust. Number two, this is a situation that has happened after 10 years of peace, so obviously they are in panic. So the adults today or the parents today are the younger generation who lived through a war for 30 years, and now they see their children has to go through the same pain, same mistrust, same fear that they faced in their childhood. So obviously they are being anxious, and perhaps that's why that caused them to act in this way.
Given that the country has experienced this sort of violence and sort of intercommunal sort of tensions before, is what the government doing now, is that an adequate job by setting curfews, by coming out with this very strong language saying anybody who disturbs the peace will be taken to task?
Well, actually what the government by putting curfew will prevent escalation of the attacks, and shutting down the social media also I think is a good move, because we have seen that social media being an inflamer in spreading rumors and fake news and inciting racial mistrust among the community. So those immediately could be good solutions, but I don't think that will translate into a long-term solution, because some of the grievances of the community is that why some political personalities who are directly or indirectly associated with the suspects have not yet been questioned, and the government has not taken enough measures to do this, which will provide assurance for the community so that they will believe that the government is doing what they should be doing. So inability to do these things only continue to cause these kind of situations.
Right, some sort of insecurity. But you mentioned there that, the government seems to have lost trust in the public. So what should they do now then to gain the trust of the public? Because as, we were mentioning earlier, it doesn't seem that they are being very proactive. They're just, reacting when something happens. So what should they do then?
For once, I think they have to understand that they have to differentiate between the victims and the extremists, and if they have, as they have taken some people into custody now, and they have to make the public know what the measures are, how the investigation is progressing. So that will give some relief to the public. And also I think there has to be a measures island-wide to build trust between the communities. This can be done along with the religious leaders and the political authorities alike and community leaders. So only I think by doing so the people will regain the trust of the government, that they feel secure under the leadership right now.
Yeah, there still needs to be a bit more of a transparent process as to what is going on as well. But do you think that is likely? Are we likely to see a calming down of all these tensions and that communities will come together? From your experience with Sri Lanka and in your opinion, do you think that things are going to get better, or do you actually see them as perhaps getting worse before they can get better?
Well, from what I see is that if the government take actions right immediately, there is possibility that people will calm down. So it is also the responsibility, therefore it's the responsibility of the government to make that happen. Right now we see that the people have put so much trust on the cardinal, religious leaders and commander of the Navy. So perhaps they can relate this message over and over again to the society, while but as I said earlier also, that would not be only sufficient. So there has to be political leadership also convincing the community that they are doing adequate measures.
Right, well, thank you for coming in and help us understanding what's been at play. Dr. Chulanee Attanayake, visiting research fellow at the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies at NUS.